constantly the messages are being reinforced throughout their childhood that they shouldn't be on their own. And if they are, that is scary, that is dangerous, that's a threat to your existence. And all of those messages just continuously get reinforced unless there's an intervention.
You're avoiding building a relationship with yourself because you've built this narrative that you are not good enough unless somebody else tells you that you are not lovable unless there is somebody there. Hey everybody, it's Bianca.
And it's Emilia.
Welcome to another episode of Evolve Ventures, where we are helping growth-minded humans evolve by breaking one limiting belief at a time. We hope you enjoyed the last episode, number 243, Motivation Monday, How to Stop Downplaying Your Accomplishments. For today, 244, Understanding Your Anxious Attachment. I don't remember exactly what the episode was, but a few episodes ago, we did an episode on understanding your attachment styles, and we said that we were going to do later episodes where we dove into each of the attachment styles and talked a little bit more in depth about how to transform those and evolve those into more of a secure attachment. So for today, we are going to start off with the anxious attachment, and in a few episodes, we are going to have one on the avoidant. So whether you're anxious or whether you're avoidant and you have anxious and or avoidant people in your life, this will be a good episode for, number one, understanding what it is, why it is the way that it is, and how do you get out of it? How do you transform it? So, I had mentioned in that episode that I am someone who was conditioned to have an anxious attachment. That is my, now to use Emilia's word, homeostasis. It's been something that I've put so much effort into working on and growing through, and I'm so much further along. I'm so much closer to secure than I've ever been, and I have a lot of work to do on that, and that's absolutely okay. When it comes to these, it's not black and white, you are or you are not, but it's more so on a spectrum. So my relationship, let's say with Emilia, is a lot more secure than maybe previous intimate relationships that I had. My relationship with my family, sorry to say, is a little more avoidant than with other people in my life, and that's okay. But we have a kind of baseline of where we sit, and mine is on the anxious side.
So what I want to pull into this episode is when we're talking about attachment styles. I remember when I first learned about this was like in high school, maybe my freshman year, and I ate this up. So I want to say that this is something, one of the most fascinating concepts when it comes to understanding humans at a deeper level, that breakthroughs upon breakthroughs can come for each of us when we start to learn about ourselves in this realm and when we learn about others. So all the more reason to really tune in and lean into this episode and really reflect upon your personal experiences as Bianca and I get into this dialogue. So when it comes to attachment styles, what are those? Maybe this is your first time listening to some episode like this. If so, welcome. If not, let's just kind of talk about high level attachment theory. What is it? Why does that matter? And then let's really dive into the different like spectrums, if you will, be that you just talked about. So when it comes to attachment theory, it's a psychological theory that essentially talks about the relationship from a child to a parent. But then it starts to evolve because that establishment of a relationship is built upon like the bonds and how in which one operates within the bonds that are built through interactions. Does a child feel safe? Do they feel secure? Do they feel seen? And can they be soothed? And to what degree? So those are 4 S's that when we talk about the attachment styles, I want us to kind of keep in mind, because that attachment conditional pattern really gets solidified when we're younger. And that we kind of carry with us into all of our other relationships, like intimacy, like really close colleagues and whatnot. And so unless we condition ourselves differently to what Bianca had said, our homeostasis, meaning what we are conditioned to go to in times of feeling need, of secure, feeling safe, feeling soothed, and feeling, any bit of seen, we go back to what that conditional response was. So I just want to make sure that we start there before we start to dive into the actual attachment styles themselves, especially when it comes to the anxious attachment style here, because the two spectrums, and if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll kind of see there's two, I would say, dimensions that when you're listening to this episode is really important for you to kind of figure out where you are on the dimension. One of them is avoidance, and the other component is anxiety. So the anxious attachment style sits in the matrix kind of where there's low avoidance and high anxiety. So B, one of my questions to you, being someone who has a conditioned anxious attachment style, where did you first see your anxious attachment style show up?
It really started when I was a kid. So you and I have had a dialogue about this. I think we talked about this actually it might have been an IG Live. I am naturally, from birth, I was naturally an extroverted person who was conditioned to be more introverted because of this, because of what I was taught growing up, because of the experiences that I had, the meanings that I had assigned to all of these things, which cultivated my anxious attachment. Emilia was more of an introverted person who was kind of forced into being more extroverted, again, due to the same reasons, the people, places, things that were surrounded around her and the lessons that she was taught. So growing up, I was really taught to be mindful of everything. Be careful of what people say about you. Be careful of what people think. Watch your actions. Watch how you sit. Watch how you stand. Watch how you walk into a room. I was conditioned to be hypervigilant to everything because the underlying message underneath that was you're not going to be enough and you're going to be shamed and punished, or you're going to bring shame and embarrassment to the family if you're not looking, acting, and portraying a certain way. So from a really young age, I was basically taught you're not good enough unless other people approve of you. And that built up over time and just got worse and worse and worse to where I couldn't speak a word without the fear of, is this going to be the right thing for this person sitting in front of me? I couldn't get dressed without needing to make sure my mom thought my outfit was okay. I couldn't do genuinely anything without needing the approval of somebody else because the messages I was told and the reactions that I got from the people around me when I didn't do what was wanted of me, when I didn't do what was expected of me. And this is really where that anxious attachment style develops. It's, what are the people around you telling you? What are they saying to you? What are they doing? Are you only getting love when you are doing what they want and need? Are they taking away love when you're not the image of what they want and need? That is what happened to me. And it was because my family all had anxious attachment styles too. They were actually, all of them are a little bit more of the ambivalent. So like a disorganized attachment. But I developed a really anxious attachment style because of that, because they were all very anxious in their relationships with other people. And for anyone who has an anxious attachment style, you know, it is awful. It really is. You spend the majority of your life questioning your existence in every single room and in every single space that you walk into, because your deepest fear is, I am not going to be loved and I am going to be abandoned. And the challenge with that is we start engaging in ways that actually makes that happen, because we become very clingy and very insecure, and we are constantly needing reassurance and validation and tell me you love me, please, I'm scared you're gonna leave, tell me what I need to do, I'll fix it, I'll do anything. And because we are so terrified of being abandoned, we unconsciously push people away, which only validates our deepest fear, and then the cycle repeats itself. And I know without a shadow of a doubt, that is why none of my relationships in the past have worked, because my anxious attachment style attracted a lot of avoidant partners. There's a theory of the anxious-avoidant trap, really is what it is, where anxiously attached people and avoidantly attached people connect with one another. LOL, Emilia and I, but we're both more on the secure side, so it works. But aside from 2 of my partners, every single person in the past that I dated was avoidant. And so what happened? They pull away and I start shrinking myself. I start diminishing myself. I start, fawning and appeasing and begging and pleading and changing everything about myself to get this person to love me. And they all eventually, it didn't work out. Either I ended the relationship, or in a few instances they did. And it just repeated the cycle, because then what does it do? It validates, see, I knew I was going to be abandoned. I knew I wasn't enough. I knew I wasn't going to be loved. And so what do? You double down the next time. And the cycle repeats itself, and it's debilitating. It really is.
Yeah. And one of the interesting things that I've seen since that first time that I stumbled across this and then really dove into psychology and the nuances underneath psychology and neuroscience and how those overlay, and then the behavior that produces, and therefore the entire life trajectory of someone, is fascinating, because anxious attachment styles typically go through, as a result of their behaviors to their attachment styles or their intimate relationship, they go through a really big life event, and it's oftentimes extremely traumatic. And then they end up being trauma bonded with their partner, who happens to be an avoidant attachment style. And it just perpetuates a really honestly, a downfalling toxic cycle around negative limiting beliefs. And that just continuously drills down levels of self-belief and self-worth together. And it's like, if you've ever seen like a movie where like there's 2 like dragons that just go at it in the middle of the air, and then they like fall down together while they're trying to like kill each other. It's kind of like that. It's a very dramatic experience, but yet they're bonded because of that. So super random and totally out of left field.
That was
but like
so random.
That's how I visualize it, though, because the trauma bond is so, you feel like you can't live without them. And I've heard that a lot from an anxious attachment style, because of that fact, like that dimension. You are low avoidant, i.e. you don't avoid having those relationships. As a matter of fact, you go overly clingy to those relationships because of the fear of abandonment, right? And the loss of love. And then there's a high anxiety induction when, like, with absolutely everything, because it's the anxious attachment style struggles to find their own independence, what's called individuation within psychology, because constantly the messages are being reinforced throughout their childhood that they shouldn't be on their own. And if they are, that is scary, that is dangerous, that's a threat to your existence. And all of those messages just continuously get reinforced unless there's an intervention.
Hello, my name is Bree, and I'm head of Evolve Ventures Media and Energies. So I would say my experience at Evolve has been absolutely amazing. I have learned and grown and done so many things that I didn't imagine that I'd be doing just over a year ago. So I'm really happy to be a part of the team, and I encourage anyone who has the opportunity to join. Yeah, so this is an experience that I don't think I would have gotten anywhere else. So it's definitely unique, and there's so many like-minded people, whether it's on the team or in our community, that can be by your side and support you. So that is an awesome experience.
Well, you're either being told you shouldn't be on your own or that you're not good enough on your own, that you need someone else to validate you and to validate your existence. And that's what it was for me. I wasn't told I shouldn't be on my own. I was told I'm not good enough on my own, that I'm not going to be loved or I'm not going to be accepted unless I appease and do what everybody else is telling me to do. And with those messages, what that really did was made it so that I had no sense of trust or security within myself. I didn't think anything good about myself, because why would I? Everything I did was wrong. It was only good when it was what other people told me to do. So this is where you start seeing people with anxious attachment styles chameleoning themselves. Whatever you like, I like. Whatever you want, I want. I'll do whatever you say. I'm not going to tell you what my preference is. I'll do whatever you ask me to do, because maybe you'll stay. Maybe you won't run away. Maybe you won't be one who leaves me. But eventually what that does is it does cause people to leave. And then you're stuck questioning again, what was wrong with me? See, even if I did everything this person wanted, I was still never enough. So now what? So you keep doing that cycle again and again and again. And here's the thing, if you are anxious, you are avoiding. You might not avoid the way that an avoidantly attached person does, but you're avoiding isolation. You're avoiding being alone. You're avoiding you as a human being, who you are, what your preferences are. You're avoiding building a relationship with yourself because you've built this narrative that you are not good enough unless somebody else tells you that you are not lovable unless there is somebody there. And this is a narrative that I have been fighting for years. For years, I've been fighting this narrative because it was so deeply ingrained. The belief was so rooted into the ground of my life. And I'm pulling out the roots. Imagine like someone trying to dig up an oak tree, right? It's going to take some effort because that thing is standing tall and it is strong and it is powerful and it is exhausting. But you cannot live the rest of your life navigating under the cloak of the belief that you are not enough and that you are not lovable. Because what you're going to find is you are always going to have that be the truth by the outcome of the experiences that you're in. You will seek what you find. And I had that happen time and time and time again. I did not feel lovable. I did not feel good enough. I did not feel like anybody was going to stay. And so I destroyed myself and I betrayed myself over and over again, having the same exact scenario play out time and time again. And I have journals to prove it. I've been reading a lot of my old journals because I'm trying to understand myself and my patterns and why I've done the things that I've done so I can change. And I cried myself to sleep the other night because I just kept reading the same cycle over and over again. I kept writing the same notes to myself over and over and over and over and over again, running this same pattern. And I'm finally changing them, but it's because I've been willing to face that horrifying fear that I've been avoiding my entire life, which is being alone, which is learning to stand my ground and hold myself up with my own 2 feet, and learning that completely betraying myself is not what is going to give me love. not a love that's actually worth having, not a love that is worth fighting for. Because I've done that already. It doesn't work. Real love is rooted in your security. That's why Emilia and I's relationship works the way that it does. Because neither of us are fawning for the other person. We are our two own autonomous, independent women who are entering into this relationship giving and receiving. And you cannot do that if you are stuck in your avoidant or your insecure attachment style, because you're just in self-protect mode the entire time.
The whole time. And what I found is that if you're constantly struggling to know what you want, know what your desires are, struggling really even to establish boundaries, or you're noticing yourself exhibit a lot of people-pleasing tendencies, chances are you're in this anxious attachment bucket in terms of attachment styles. And other chances, if you're struggling with that, it's also the flip side of that, honestly, let's be real, is the avoidant attachment style or disorganized. It's not secure. I'll just say that, right? And the compound effect of that is, I heard a statistic the other day that 87% of people go throughout their life with actually claiming what it is that they want, like their purpose, their actual passion, and like living within that, their life's purpose. And that just made me really, really sad. And I was reflecting upon that. And it's no doubt in my mind that this is a common factor that impacts that statistics. If we are not claiming or even being able to shift the narrative that we are worth developing a relationship with ourselves, and thus shifting away from all the narratives and the messages and everything from which we interpreted growing up, or that which we experienced growing up, we're going to really, really struggle to define what it is we want, to define what our goals, our dreams, our desires, our aspirations, etc. are. And when we lose or miss out on that, we also miss out on a very deeply fulfilling lifestyle that is in pursuit of that. And I just think that is something that for all of our listeners at Evolve, I really hope that this message inspires you to get curious about yourself, to understand what is it that I don't yet understand about my anxious attachment style. And instead of judging yourself for that, really shifting into that curious, compassionate standpoint within yourself, just like Bianca, you have done, that's been able to help you work towards this more secure attachment style that you're now more living and breathing.
So to wrap this up, how do we actually do that? If you are somebody who is struggling with an anxious attachment style, what is it that you can actually start to do to tiptoe your way into, and I say tiptoe very purposefully because it is going to feel like tiptoeing. It's going to be in micro moments and it's going to take some time. So how do you actually get to that? Number one, which is the most honestly terrifying thing for every single one of us who is in anxious attachment. If you're in a relationship already, this does not mean end your relationship. But if you're single, I'll say for the single people first, you have to actually face being alone. You have to actually put yourself in the position where you are alone, and you have to learn how to tolerate it. And your nervous system is going to go into fight or flight. You are going to feel completely dysregulated. Your anxious attachment system is going to, or your attachment system is going to be on high alert. And it is part of the process. It's kind of like going through a detox. You got to go through the DTs. You got to learn how to tolerate the intense emotions and the thoughts and the sensations of what it is like to be alone. Number two, when you start being alone, it's really working through those thoughts and narratives and emotions and processing through them when they come up in your relationships, in different settings, and learning how to build that relationship with yourself, identifying your likes and dislikes, identifying your boundaries, starting to build that sense of confidence in yourself, which will allow you to start developing that more secure attachment. The only reason I have been able to start developing a more secure attachment is because I've forced myself to be alone and to walk away from situations that were not serving my attachment.
The only thing and last thing here that I would add to this is we all need someone to help us do this.
Absolutely.
Right? I will definitely say this, and I think you would agree, Bea. That's why I want to make sure that we share this. I had a really positive, and I'll go into this in episode number 246 when I talk about my conditioned avoidant attachment style, but I had a very positive, very healthy and adaptive relationship with being alone and working through that deservency factor, right? And I think that without a shadow of the doubt, that having exposure to someone who had that really helped you realize that you can have your own version of that too. And this is what I want to say for all of our listeners. What Bianca just suggested is so important and so impactful to anyone who is struggling in their life right now as a result of the anxious attachment and the behaviors and the thoughts and the narratives and everything like that. I would implore every single listener to have someone that you can lean on that has a really positive, adaptive, healthy relationship with being alone, because that's going to help to influence this exposure therapy that essentially you're doing with yourself. And that self-leadership can be really emphasized and exponentialized when you have someone in your corner that helps you do that in a safe, adaptive, functioning way. So whether that looks like a friend, whether that looks like a coach, a therapist, whatever, Bianca or I really, really want to encourage anyone who is trying to move from anxious to secure, get someone in your corner to help really celebrate those wins and expose you to a new normal that your regulation system is going to be like, oh, okay, yeah, no, that is what it looks like and feels like and everything like that, because that exposure does so much for you when you are going through the throngs of it.
I'm so glad you said that. Thank you for bringing that into it. I kind of implied that, but I know we need to explicitly say it, so I'm glad you explicitly said that.
Yeah. Like imagine doing what you had done without any exposure to like my relationship with being alone. Like that would be so hard in general.
I wouldn't have been able to do it.
I was just going to say, I doubt you would venture in that. I know. Yeah, I know. I don't want to say it, but like.
No, I wouldn't have. No, I wouldn't have.
It's facts.
I would have stayed repeating the same cycles over and over again. Having somebody there to guide you is the cheat code.
Yeah.
It is. So make sure that when you're doing this, you have help.
Yeah. So important. Bianca, final episode suggestion and takeaway.
112, how self-worth impacts relationships. To everyone listening to this, learning to heal this and learning to transform through this, let's call a spade a spade. It is going to feel excruciating. It is. We don't sugarcoat things here. And I've learned that being very explicit with clients, they always thank me for it because I'm not going to hide it. I'm going to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
I went through it. It sucked. Like really, it sucked. And I would do it over again if I had to. I do it every single day. Because living your life in fear every single day of whether someone else is going to love you and validate you and be there for you is not a fulfilling life. It is not a good life. It is not a happy life. It is miserable. And I've been through it, and I would never want anyone else to have to go through that. So please, if this is something you are struggling with, reach out for help.
Thank you for sharing that, Bea. My episode suggestion for all of our listeners is 207 is your attachment style hurting you? We, like Bianca mentioned earlier in this episode, we went into the different attachment styles and helping to kind of give a little dipping the toe into moving from an insecure attachment style, which is what the anxious attachment style is categorized as, to a secure, more secure attachment style. And it is a process. So trust that process. And like Bianca had said, reach out when you need help, when you need support, and it is never too late to start. So we hope you enjoyed this episode. Go have an amazing week. Happy Thursday, everyone. And we'll talk to you soon. Bye.